Hey everyone, I want to announce that Love Conquers Fear, with the subtitle Humanity, AI, and the Age of Abundance for All, is now available for pre-order at loveconquersfear.org. It is such a beautiful experience to have this book in my hands. The version that you can pre-order now is hardcover. It comes out on June 23rd in honor of the solstice, where the light overcomes the dark. It covers a very broad range of how we're going to transcend all the biggest problems and opportunities we have in the world to enter into that beautiful age of abundance for all. I hope you'll support the work. This is my love letter to humanity. This is my soul song. It's a deeply sacred book that I poured my heart and soul into. Tell your friends, tell them about loveconquersfear.org, tell them about the podcast, and ultimately tell them about this book, because this is the manifestation of all the work I've done on this path, and it is my deep, deep prayer for all of humanity. Thank you so much.
When AI hit, for me, it just made sense. It was like this unlock with the way that I work and think and communicate, and it allowed me to start doing things I'd always wanted to do. AI is making everybody an entrepreneur, and they're getting to release this pent-up innovation that they've had in their heads forever. AI is best benefiting those who can figure out how to become conductors of knowledge and context.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Love Conquers Fear podcast. You know, one of the things that I meant to mention in the last recording was this past weekend. Now, by the time you see this, it will be way past this moment. But this past weekend is when President Trump signed an executive order to fast track psychedelic research for therapy. And as you know from the podcast, I had Brian Hubbard on episode 53. He is the founder and CEO of Americans for Ibogaine. The efficacy for ibogaine in saving opioid addicts, alcoholics, suicidal vets. We have lost 4 times as many vets to suicide than combat since the Iraq War, which is a crazy stat to fathom. The efficacy is that so far, over 80% of the time, one dose completely cures them, which is incredible. And no matter what you think about psychedelics, and I understand that for some it's a very taboo subject, we're programmed. You know, I've talked about programming many times on this podcast. The Nixon administration was the original source of that programming, at least in this lifetime for many of us, where there was a real cancellation, if you will, of all inquiry into psychedelic research, even though the efficacy back then was showing very promising results for people suffering from depression, from alcoholism, etc. But no matter what you think about it, the research is pretty undeniable in terms of how well it works for people that are really suffering, you know, whether it's MDMA and it's couples therapy. You know, I've seen that repair many marriages. I've seen people, you know, really have transformational journeys with psilocybin, with all types of things. I have talked about my transformational journeys on this podcast as well, and actually quote from my journey that led to this calling for Love Conquers Fear. This is the penultimate moment for me in this lifetime in terms of really trying to help humanity have a heart shift. And there's many people that are part of the light, as I've covered on this podcast. I just read a beautiful piece by Demis Hassabis, who's responsible for everything AI at Google. But I just want to congratulate Brian Hubbard and the whole Americans for Ibogaine team. I was just at TED, and Steve Jurvenson and Genevieve, his wife, were at that signing. They're very pro-psychedelic and have seen all types of transformations with friends and whatnot. And they were there too. And one of the things that Steve said, which is so funny, in his Facebook post about it, is that President Trump apparently said, you know, I think I should get a hold of some ibogaine myself, which would be unbelievable if he actually did that, because it allows you to transcend so much trauma in a lifetime. I was just talking with a friend earlier today who did an ibogaine journey recently who has absolutely transcended a massive amount of trauma and has a new lease on life. So, why should you have to cross the border and go to Mexico if you're an American to have a journey that could quite literally save your life? And we should have that care and empathy for our veterans and for anybody suffering. Obviously, PSA on psychedelics has been put out many times, including episode 25 with Patrick Gentempo. Make sure that you really check the references if you feel a calling to do this. Women have been preyed on in psychedelic journeys from stories I've heard. I've never personally seen that, but stories I've heard. So, there's weird people out there that administer this stuff. And then there's some people that are very much part of the light that you can really go into a place of trust and deep surrender when you're in the medicine. But I just want to say that I'm really excited about this. I got some flack in posting this on LinkedIn from a gentleman who said, well, hey, we shouldn't have to do executive orders for things. We should follow the normal process. And respectfully, and I showed him great love, we have had 50 plus years of following the same process, and we have gotten almost nowhere, right? I mean, people literally have to go to another country where they are more, in my opinion, developed in this area to have a journey type experience legally. And that creates all types of, separation, right? The people that can afford to do that. I mean, these vets, they're having to raise money through donations to be able to go to Mexico. And these substances, these plants, and the chemicals derived from them, ibogaine is derived from the boga plant. They're available to us to alleviate suffering. So anyways, I just want to say congratulations on that. I think that, look, every administration, there's good and bad, for sure. I am very centrist politically. And when you get a win, like, run with the win. Doesn't mean that I'm a supporter of everything President Trump is doing. That's not the message at all. But this is a big, big win for alleviating suffering. And from a deep place of love, my love for all of humanity and my prayer for us getting to the age of abundance for all, this is a big deal. So very happy about it. I also told you on the last episode that I'm so lucky to be holding the first print proof of Love Conquers Fear in my hands. The subtitle is Humanity, AI, and the Age of Abundance for All. I have put heart and soul into this book. Literally the past 8 months, intensive, writing, rewriting, additional research, trying to keep up with all of the AI trends as well. But I really am very proud of what this has turned out to be. You can pre-order it at loveconquersfear.org. You can also, there are going to be discount codes there in the future. I just can't tell you how much this fills me up with love and hope. It's very clear-eyed on what the risks are in terms of us reaching that age of abundance for all. It talks about why you should believe we can do it at all. If we give up on humanity, then and think we're not worthy of entering, and we all manifest that, well, then it is the end of everything. But if we believe in the great potential we have and the beauty in all of us, the divinity within, that divine spark that lives in us all, and the beautiful acts of love that happen daily versus what you would expect if you just sit back and let the news onslaught you with a bunch of negative stories making you think we live in a total dystopia, you will, we'll have that heart shift. And as we have that heart shift, we'll enter the age of abundance for all. And it's in all the spiritual text that love must conquer fear, both within ourselves and us helping each other. And this is really my prayer, my manifesto for us to get there, looking at all the biggest problems, all the biggest opportunities. So I'm very, very excited today to welcome a very good friend, someone I've known for a long, long time. We'll kind of unpack that, tell the story about that. Brandon Gadoci. Brandon.
How you doing?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Man, I'm
Thanks
so
for having
happy
me.
to be here with you.
Yeah,
this has been
great.
a long time in the making.
Yeah.
Why don't we start out with how we know each other? Let me just give you some love. So you were the first employee at data.world, alongside us as co-founders, and you played so many different roles in the company. You always played them with such incredible grace, humility, but also intense drive and curiosity. And the reason I think you were able to do that is because your background is so unusual. I really want to unpack that. It's amazing, like how many things you've done. And in my opinion, you're kind of like a Renaissance man meets capitalist.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a compliment.
Yeah.
And yeah, you and I have known each other a long time, and it's amazing what you're doing now in terms of really being on the leading edge with AI operations and helping companies towards that. And I got to see that firsthand at one of the biggest customers at data.world. We probably shouldn't name them on the podcast, but just you and I had this great meeting with them, and you saw the light bulb turn on.
Yep.
And that was a beautiful moment.
It was fun.
That was one of my most fun moments with you on the road.
Yeah, that was a cool trip.
But yeah, so I wanted to have you on because you know more about AI than almost any business professional. I mean, there's very, very few who now have studied it as obsessively. And when I originally approached you at data.world about kind of taking the mantle on this, I was like, Brandon, first of all, I know you're going to be good at it. Second of all, you're going to be able to write a book on this. And I was like, third of all, you'll be one of the most in-demand guys. And that's what's happened. But it's happened because of you and your drive, Yeah. I mean, as a CEO, you're just trying to give people nudges with lots of love, and then it's up to them whether they take the ball. And you took the ball, man, ran all the way down the field with it. And now you're scoring a touchdown in AI operations. So
well, yeah, it was a really cool time to be exploring those concepts as this magical technology came out, and then we all sat around and were like, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
And then to spend 4 years with you and the team doing that was awesome.
Why don't you describe that initial light bulb moment where you were working with Brian Jacob at data.world, and we were like, holy moly.
Yeah. So part of my backstory, but I would end up at early stage, well-funded venture backed companies and kind of come in as a guy that could do a lot of different stuff, right? Because my background, design and development, sales, marketing. But at the end of that journey was always sort of me running a sales team, right? Like a team of SDRs or BDRs. And it was after one of the all hands or offsites that we had, and I was having a beer with Brian, and I was like, hey, it's not lost on me that on one part of the day, on one side of the table, I'm annoyed by all these cold calls that I'm getting, and I'm halfway trolling these cold callers. And then I immediately turn around and ask how many calls my sales team made. And so that dissonance in there kind of led me to say, hey, is there a better way to do this? And I'd been thinking about the sales world and how that worked for a long time, and how is that model going to change? And then ChatGPT launched and started getting into that. And I just looked at Brian and I was like, hey, there's got to be a better way for us to do this. Can we create an experience where we let people own the conversation, we guide them towards the help that they need? And Brian was listening, and then like 11 o'clock that night, he shot me a link in Slack, and he's like, you mean like this? And I was like,
as only Brian Jacob could do.
And I was like, I mean exactly like that.
Yeah.
And so, then
But let's describe what that was.
Yeah.
We give it a name and everything.
Yeah, basically, we I was saying, can we, instead of like the website, can they have this experience? But we take specific data.world knowledge and we infuse it at the right times. And so he created what's now very popular, but a RAG application using Streamlit, just a chat interface that referenced a huge JSON file that we got from all the knowledge on our website, all the pages on our website.
All the white papers, everything.
Everything. I think it was like a 32 megabyte text file, which is pretty big.
That's a big file.
Yeah, that's a big file. And so
all the blog posts including
everything. I think
everything.
it's like 3,000 pages worth of content was in there. And so it worked and it was cool. And we were at the all hands the next day in the office, and I was kind of like, while people were talking. It's not very good, but I was going around and being like, "Hey, dude, check this out! Like, look at this thing," and they would start.
I remember
using
you
it.
did that with me, and
Yep,
I was like,
I did it with you. You did in the meeting,
Yep.
And then people started looking at it, and oh my gosh, and they started using it. And then I was like, wait a minute, if I just change the prompt a little bit and create another one of these, I can use it for something different. I can do it for marketing campaign generation. I can do it for strategy sessions. I can do it. And so that's when we kind of all got together and said, like, what if you did that?
Yeah.
Like, and kept doing it. And so that's kind of
And I think, I mean, you know, I don't know if it was a first, but it was the first website I knew of for enterprise software where you could chat with all the content. I mean, it was early. It blew people away. Like as I was raising money, I would show this to prospective investors, and they would just fall in love with it. Customers, you know, fell in love with it. Then it quickly expanded into documentation, so that customers could just chat with all of our tech docs versus, you know, read through a big tree. And
we started using it internally for you know, folks to get the information quicker, and then that posed challenges. Right now we got 8 of these tools, and how do we scale that? And that was a whole other part of the.
And by the way, we're reminiscing about this as if it's so long ago. This was 3 years ago. This is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yep.
I mean, ChatGPT launched November 30th of 2022.
Yep.
It was March of 2023 where there's a moratorium, like pause all AI development, you know, 37,000 people signed that. And, you know, what we're talking about is a very simple text-based chat with all the content at data.world.
Yeah.
And, you know, we expanded on that, you know, many times over. It's kind of cool. I don't know if you saw recently that ServiceNow announced the context engine, which is something we pioneered at data.world a couple of years ago. And it's now integrated in all the ServiceNow stuff, which is cool. But, you know, we are so far beyond that moment. I mean, we're like AI generated video and like full on, like, you know, one prompt and you can get to a 3D game created from scratch. I don't know if you've checked out what Notebook LM is up to now, where you can take, you know, you can create a whole infographic from a PDF, you know, including, you know, this book. You know, video version, and then, you know, full slide deck. I did it with this book, and I was like blown away.
The way you know
it produced.
It's not uncommon now for like a family member, you know, at night after dinner, and I'll be on the couch as they're settling down to walk in and just find me talking to the computer because. All with the way that everything is set up for
your kids are like,
for
what's
us
going
right
on
now.
here,
Were you talking to me? Like, no, shh, I'm trying to get work done. So, but it is this. It's a new way of working, and I think knowledge work has changed, and I think we're, I mean, smack dab in the middle of that. It's been changing, but then, you know, December of last year and Anthropic's just, you know, historical run on feature releases, which you would expect if AI is writing AI, has been just. Awesome and disorienting to be in.
Anthropic at a 30 billion run rate now. Up from like $1 billion.
Up from 14 billion, I think, in December.
In December.
I think they. I think they.
But I think it's 15 months. I think it's 15 months from $1 billion to 30 billion.
It's insane.
Run rate. It's never happened before.
Nope. And it's good. I mean, it's like I said, it's amazing, but it's introducing new challenges and new sort of mental health things that I think we need to think about.
For sure.
You know, I haven't got a good name for this. Maybe you can help me figure it out on the podcast. But like this idea of unbridled, unobstructed potential of progress or potential of being better, of learn. Like this idea, I can learn, I can go do anything, and that in and of itself, you know, is intoxicating, but also like tiring. So you got to learn how to work in this new world. So anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but the ability, well, that's all about the inner journey and just being able to self-regulate, period, no matter what you're doing. Because pre-AI, you could have worked yourself to death and had no balance at all.
These are not new problems.
I mean, when I wrote the book, The Entrepreneur's Essentials, my favorite chapter of that book is chapter 14 on the 7 lessons learned from founder to CEO. And one of them is to really take the time for deep reflection, like whether that's walks in nature or taking a vacation with your family, because you can burn yourself out, period, versus just, you know, practicing some kind of reflection and love, you know, and there's no end to the drive for materiality, and that's not ultimately the path to happiness. I mean, you need to have a certain amount for for living, but the path to happiness is found from within.
Yeah.
In terms of anything lasting, versus the ephemeral.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think we've had this problem actually forever. But the thing that's so exciting is that the barrier to creativity is absolutely being shattered. I mean, shattered.
Yeah.
Which is so exciting. At TED, you haven't seen this TED Talk go live yet. I was just there last week, and there was this. I was there actually with Juan Cicada. Which was really cool.
Great.
And so Juan and I were watching this talk by this woman creating this beautiful AI generated artwork that is really different. It's really something new.
Yeah.
It's not something that's existed before in the world.
Okay.
So you remember just several years ago, people were like, it's the end of artwork and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And this TED, it felt like, hey, we're adapting and we're learning. And yes, there's lots of watch outs, but there's a lot to love.
Yeah.
And this woman's like coming out with her own record now. Like
Wow.
I think she's in her late 50s or 60s. She's like, never thought I'd be doing that.
Yeah.
And her artwork is just really, really gorgeous. And so like, we're in this time where she's like, I could have never produced anything like this, but what she's producing is so novel. It's so novel. She's using like, she's really focusing more on organics, like how flowers unfold, et cetera.
Yeah.
And nature is the best teacher because nature has had billions of years of evolution. Like the best products typically are designed around nature. When we were in Japan this past summer, I learned that the way that they designed the subway systems was watching how the mycelium networks form, and so they actually like had mushrooms like to see where they would go because they figure out the best path, and then they design the subways after that, and they're highly efficient.
That's awesome.
So in terms of your background getting to this point, how do you see the dots connecting in reverse? Thinking about, let's channel Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
This age that you're at, like, why do you think this is your calling?
And you mentioned it in the piece you wrote, the lattice about the Steve Jobs speech, only connecting the dots looking back and not going forward. And it's so true. And
yeah, it's my science fiction novella.
Yeah, right.
I was happy to hear you had read it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's hard. And as you're going through that journey, there's parts of it where it doesn't feel like you're making progress sometimes, or you're in the right place, or maybe your message is to wait and you don't like that. But as I do look back, I tell my kids, like, I don't know what I want to do. I was like, look, I'm 47 and I think I just figured it. I think everything came together for me. So it's a journey. Yep. But I went to art school right out of high school, which my dad had wore a suit and tie every day, and I said, oh, of course, the son has to. I'm going to do something different, and so I went to art school and played soccer. I was going to be a graphic designer and do all that. I ended up not loving it there, and so I came back to Austin, Texas, and got into an advertising degree because they took the most of my credits from art school. It's kind of hard to transfer into an MIS degree with sculpture and 2D design. And so did that, got an advertising degree, 99. Market crashes, all the advertising agencies go under. That plan's shattered. And so I ended up renting trucks for a friend's company here in town. And then I ended up selling copiers and sharing war stories in my first 750 square foot apartment with my wife, with our neighbor, about selling copiers. And he was like, man, you should come over and work at a financial advisor or big financial advisory firm. And I was like, that's hilarious, mainly because I was still working through getting a misdemeanor off my record for writing a hot check in college. I wrote a check for $1.39 for a pumpkin for my first date with my wife, and it bounced.
Oh no!
And I paid the bank, but I never paid the grocery store, and I didn't know, and it went all
it went on your credit.
It went, so I had to take a class during the summer on how to balance a checkbook, and I screwed that up the first time, and so I was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to be a financial advisor. Yeah. It seems like a good fit. But I learned a lot that, at that phase, it's that's kind of a sales job as much as it is a financial advisor job if you can find the right partner. And so I went in there and I did that, and I got really intoxicated with that idea of success because I was kind of looking around the office and I was like, I think I can work harder than that guy, and I think I can study harder than that guy, and so that's what I did for 9 years and learned a ton. When you start in that world, they gave me $32,000 in salary in 12 months and said, you got to pass these 3 tests. If you fail any of them, you're fired. You got to go to New Jersey at the end of this training program for 3 weeks and do like role playing. And if you mess that up, you're fired. And when you come back, your salary's gone. So go to town.
Right.
So just
sounds like something that everybody would sign up for.
Yeah, sounds like, yeah, exactly. But it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot in that process, and then later on met you along the way, and so I did that for.
I was a customer.
Yeah, good origin story there.
Yeah, the way I met you was a little bit of a calamity, I still work with Carl as one of my guys, and he's amazing.
He's one of the best guys I've met around.
He was your partner for it. Yeah.
And so I set off, after that journey and tried to figure out what do I want to do next. I want to go try to be an entrepreneur on my own, and so I had all these ideas, and really from about that point I'd been just idea machine, right? And you've known me this whole time, and I'd call you or text you.
A total idea machine.
Totally. And so I was really just trying to grind through all these different things, and so. I ended up with an odd set of skills at that point too, because I had the art background. I had done sales from financial advising, doing my own stuff. I had to learn how to do marketing and all of that, and I taught myself to code along the way too. Back in the old days of Stack Overflow and posting questions and trying to figure it out. And so I became this attractive hire for early stage venture companies, and I'd come in and kind of help them do all the things, and then. At data.world, we kind of got where I had that arc, right? And I was running the SDR program and having that conversation with Brian, and then everything just started to click. When AI hit, for me, it just made sense. It was like this unlock with the way that I work and think and communicate, and it allowed me to start doing things I'd always wanted to do. And that's an offshoot of this conversation is like what I'm seeing in the enterprise is AI is making everybody an entrepreneur. And they're getting to release this pent-up innovation that they've had in their heads forever. And so
if they choose it.
If they choose it, right. Yep.
They have the free will, including their job, to either fear it or embrace it. And I'm not saying that they should bury their head in the sand in terms of like having balance and the way they think about the way we're constructing, the evolution of work and the world, but fearing something that can make you so hyper productive and get you to more of the good stuff where you can exercise more of your creativity is really fun. I mean, it's I don't know how many years it's going to be before we feel like Mickey Mouse and Fantasia. It's like,
I already feel like that.
Exactly.
With like moving the stuff around. I talk about it, that knowledge work is done, the AI is best benefiting those who can figure out how to become conductors of knowledge and context. I'm just moving this information around to get to the result that I want to get to.
You've already figured out the Mickey Mouse Fantasia.
I never thought about the Fantasia piece. That makes sense. But so that just hit. It worked.
Remember in Fantasia though, the little broom mop guys got out of control.
They did get a little out of control.
He had to shut it down eventually. So even in Fantasia, there's a little arc. There's a little watch out.
They needed some governance in there.
They did.
But then it was just off to the races, and at data.world, you were a big advocate and pushing me not just to build cool tools, but you've got to address the change management and education piece of this, and so we worked really hard on that. That's become a core part of what we're doing now, and so I'm thankful that you pushed on that.
Yeah, you bet.
Uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, one of the books that is so pithy, because it's so simple, is like Who Moved My Cheese. But it became this multi-bestseller, and change management's hard. There's a lot of friction in people just adopting new things, even if it's so obviously superior to old ways of doing things.
There was these moments that we had back then where I'd be like, check this out. Isn't it cool? And everybody would be like, it's super cool. And then I'd look back and like, are you using it? And like, not really. What happened? I thought we were, learned a ton in that.
I mean, even at data.world where we hired like super adaptable people.
100%.
So think about what was happening inside the big, 10,000 plus people companies.
Yeah, and I'm still seeing it. We're seeing it right now.
Yep.
And so yeah, so that was the journey. And then when my time at data.world in ServiceNow sort of came to an end, I thought, I wonder if the rest of the world might be interested if I hung a shingle and said, hey, I can maybe help you bring this magic into the company.
Yeah.
And it turns out a lot of people are interested in that conversation right now. So
that's awesome.
It feels like, to your point, all of a sudden it all came together, and it's working. And it just feels like I'm in the right place with the right set of skills and interests to have a lot of fun and build something kind of cool. So, yeah.
What are some of the standout moments so far in this journey? And what do you call it? You call it just your name?
Just Gadoci Consulting.
Okay, Gadoci.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that's what you called it. Yeah, we could talk about that later.
Yeah.
Like it's tough to put your name on a shingle. But
I needed to put it on a Slack domain, and when I started doing just one-off little things, I'll just make it Gadoci Consulting.
You know, the very first company I stared was called Hurt Technology Consulting. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. No.
That was it. So in terms of like standout moments so far with customers, what have been things where it's like, yes, that's just awesome?
Oh man. There's been a bunch. I'll try to zero in on one. I mean, there's a lot of little ones that you see joy in people's faces when you introduce this technology, and all of a sudden they're like, "You're kidding me? I can do." They're almost like, "Leave me alone. I want to go." And then that entrepreneur, they became the entrepreneur, so now they're creating and they're And I know that you're big on the creation piece of things with a lot that you've written, and you see that. You see the people's desire to create. We do one thing. We have as part of our system, we go in and we try to identify like the internal AI champions, and we create a group out of those people, and we have a specific curriculum and roadmap for them. So the idea is like, hey, 5 to 10% of the companies, people inside of departments and companies, kind of already are doing this. They're high agency, curious people who are experimenting with AI. They're the ones walking around showing people things or sharing news articles. And we say, who are they, or we'll help you identify them, and then let's just walk in the same direction. We started this at data.world. Let's just walk in the same direction. What we're going to do is offer you a front row seat to the future of work. We're going to keep you up to date on news, capabilities of AI. We're going to teach you how to do discovery, but ultimately we want you to become the frontline drivers for AI adoption and use case discovery within your functional business units. And when you start that meeting, you kind of get this group of people together, and I've identified 6 personas inside the company, from very excited people to who stole my cheese people, right? And so, but the most rewarding thing is over time, that meeting, I always leave about 25 minutes in that meeting for show and tell. And early on in an engagement, I'm poking people behind the scenes, being like, hey, I know we built that thing for you, but will you present it and go do that? And you're trying to piece this show and tell together. But over time, it's so cool to watch, as now every time we run out of time in that section. People are volunteering. Wow. Look what I made. Look what I created. Can I demo on this next time? Can I show this thing? Whatever. And when you're talking about ROI on AI, that's a whole conversation we can have. But if you're looking for change management indicators, that's one for us that we look for as sort of leading indicator, because from that group, then it pushes out to the rest of the company.
Yeah,
so.
That's so cool. I mean, it reminds me of our youngest daughter when we were in Japan a few years ago. This was when AI was very new. She was showing them, she would ask them a few questions, and then she would make a song in Suno to just show them how she could create a song in J-pop style, in Japanese, about their restaurant or about their business. And the joy you would see on people's faces, because it's the first time, and I would tell her that's the first time in their entire life that they're ever going to have that experience, because you are the one that introduced them to AI. And you getting to do that in business after business. I mean, let's face it, like most of us in business spend almost all of our waking time doing the job. And so making it joyful is everything. I mean, like, let's make it count. Making 100%. It impactful. Working for a company where you really think the mission is aligned with what you're supposed to do, et cetera. The culture. So that's got to be really joyous.
It's cool to see
it. Yeah.
It's cool, and then the random emails you get. Hey, by the way, you say something in a meeting and you introduce somebody to something. I mean, the pace of change right now is so fast that every 3 months I've got a new set of things to talk about with people. But the email or the Slack message or the Teams message that you get back where it's like, hey, that thing you said in that meeting, I did that. Look what it did. That was super cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. That's pretty rewarding stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Has there been any big surprise yet? Like something where you thought this was going to go one way in terms of people's acceptance or not?
I don't think it's specific to AI. I think it's more specific to consulting that, when you come in as a consultant, you're not everybody's best friend right off the bat. There's certain, pockets of people that maybe aren't that excited about you being there.
Oh yeah. I've experienced that. I've been a consultant before.
Yeah, right. And so, the kind of winning hearts and minds as you're in there and earning people's respect and that is something I actually enjoy doing, and I think I've been successful at. But it wasn't on the list of things that was in there. It was like, oh yeah, there's that aspect of it too. There's, I generally feel like I'm a likable guy, and so that's jarring to me before someone's even met me.
I mean, you got to remember they're reading. I just had a friend text me right before this. Actually, it was Mitch Joel who was just on the podcast. He was the last episode. But he just texted me right before this about a big layoff that Meta is doing today.
Yeah,
that's like something like 6,000 employees, and so there's going to be people when you walk in, and they're claiming that they're doing this layoff because of AI. But when you walk in, where people are going to be like, "Oh, this is the guy that's like going to lead to us all losing our job," but it's not. That's not the actual reality. I know that you're actually the guy that honestly could help them keep their job because you're going to level them up. Yeah. And then they're going to be super valuable, not just to that company, but every company they ever work at afterwards. Yeah. Like the more they become, super adopters to wield more creativity in their job, the better. That's that's every job that has ever existed, really.
I mean, we used to have people called calculators. Right.
Exactly.
And so like every technological revolution that comes along.
That's a great movie, Hidden Figures.
Yeah, it's
great movie.
But every major technological shift we see, there is job creation and displacement and so on. And now we're in the heart of this, and you've got articles coming out. They're saying it's, AI is taking jobs, and then you got really reputable people saying they're using it as an excuse, and actually the jobs have been created. I mean, Mark Andreessen's weighing in on this recently. But what I can tell you is from our standpoint, I'm just not interested in that conversation. Like there's not a single client that I've walked into that says, hey, can you help me cut jobs? And if they did, I probably wouldn't take the engagement. I'm much more interested in leveling people up, teaching them what's possible, bringing joy to their work, and then as an organization, making that company, more innovative and unlock all the things that they wanted to do over the years. And, if there's a narrative that we stumble upon that is, so callous as to just make that the objective, then we won't take the engagement.
Right. Well, and there's no imagination in that type of objective. What should be foremost on people's minds if they experience that massive productivity lift with AI is, what new markets can we enter that we've never entered before? What new products can we come out with that have been on the shelf but we didn't have the ability to come out with them before? Like the laziest companies will think about it only as a margin expansion move. The smartest companies will think about it as a transformational move for their enterprise. Yeah. One of the meetings I was at this week, I'm really proud to serve on the executive advisory board at the Dell Medical School. And just recently, it was announced that Michael and Susan Dell have given over $1 billion now. It's never happened before to UT Austin. And they're building this medical center, which is 2.5 million square feet, which the average downtown building, by the way, in Austin, or even the big ones, are like 800 to 900,000 feet. So take the largest skyscraper downtown Austin, 2.5 times those. Yeah. And they're taking this approach from the very beginning of putting cutting edge AI, cutting edge robotics, like really putting the patient at the center. The presentation I saw, they were showing the state of the art hospital rooms around the world, and like, would you want to stay there? Yeah. And it's like, heck no. Like the human's not even thought of, even in state of the art where it's high tech. And so they're really making it like a place where you nobody wants to go to a hospital, but where you would feel more at home.
I love that. I haven't heard of this.
Instead of the cold, sterile.
Yeah.
And so it's incredible. It's happening in Austin. Austin goes from strength to strength. But, that's the right way to think about it. What new things can you do as a result that you could not do before?
Yeah, it's just not, there's 0% of our time in that story. It's just not there. And
that's good.
And what's great is that I've been doing this now long enough to, when you start something like this, and we came up with the system at data.world, and it was like, is this going to work? And I'm going to try this. How do I have to move it? I use this analogy a lot called getting the couch in the house. When I talk to potential clients, it's like, look, I have this thing I came up with, and it's from experience, and I've stepped in potholes, and I've had some successes, and I'll explain it to you. But ultimately, it's kind of like, if you ever help somebody move. I'm not a big fan of helping move. It's a lot of work.
Oh, it's a lot of work, for sure. Yeah.
But, I found myself standing in the front yard, and there's a big couch there, and the guy's like, we got to get that in that living room in there. And you're like, I don't know how we're going to get, it's not going to go front door, back door, legs off, doors coming off the hinges. And that's what I kind of tell people is like, we have this system, but it's not right, exactly like it is for every single client, because there's different cultural things, there's different objectives. And so we try to figure out how to get the couch in the house. How do we bring these tenets and this thinking to your company personality and make it yours?
So I'm curious, asking you this question because you've had such exposure to so many different AI tools and really trying to stay on the cutting edge to be able to help your customers at Gadoci Consulting. Like, what have been some of the biggest shifts you've seen in terms of these announcements? It's very hard to keep up with these announcements. Like Ethan Holland, who was on episode 4 of the podcast, he has now surpassed, I think, 60,000 links since charting this at the beginning of ChatGPT's launch. Like, he comes out with a weekly newsletter, and he hand curates this. I mean, he does use AI to help him, but he hand curates this to try to keep up with it. And it's one of my favorite newsletters because there's like so much in it. Every week, and I'm just curious for you, because you're putting out a lot of great content now on LinkedIn and other mediums, but what are some of the moments where you're like, okay, this kind of changes things quite a bit?
Yeah, I think everybody I call them aha moments, like, and there's been so many. I mean,
there's been so many. Yeah.
Like starting out, I think my very first aha moment with AI was when, do you remember Mario from data.world? He showed me something that wrote like 4 paragraphs of text. And that's the first time I was like, because in my head it was like, it can't actually write something that's believable. And then it was like, wow. So I was like, what is happening here? And then there's been so many. I mean, there's, little ones when ChatGPT first came out, and I was like, make me a poem about a pirate playing baseball or something. And it was like, oh, I did a really good job with that. And then they just compound and they stack and they compound and stack. There was moments early on when I'd be, one of them was helping one of my kids with homework, and they'd give me their study guide or their textbook. And it was when they started processing images. I was like, is there any way that, and I would snap a picture of it and be like, give me 10 questions about that. And it would do it, or it'd help me answer the question. There was those moments. There was, back when we were copying and pasting code into ChatGPT, and then I'd put it in and I'd hit the button and it would run. And I did something I never could do before. I mean, working with Brian on what we, created that vectorizer thing behind the scenes, he would give me little bits of instruction. I would go research it, and then I was able to go from his 3 lines to like working code, which was, and that's compounded and compounded. I would say, most recently, while the video stuff was cool and the image generation stuff is cool, those were like mini aha moments. It was this, since December, there's just been so many. The Claude Cowork stuff has been blowing my mind. Claude Code, just turned a year a little while ago. I remember specifically when I was getting into agentic coding, I tried them all, right? The cursors and windsurfs and all that. And I remember being on, I think it was Windsurf, and somebody saying, you really need to try Claude Code. And I was like, why? I've already got magic in a box right here. Why would I change anything? This is going so well. And then they gave me Claude Code, and I was like, that's why. Right, it's a completely different thing. And so, it's been a series of those. It's so exciting, and almost to the point to where it's like, I can't even talk about it anymore, because to people that you meet out, like I'll ask people sometimes, just as a first question, like, you know what Claude Code is? And just watch their eyes. Because if they get wide, like, okay, you understand the state of how this stuff is going. Otherwise, so yeah, a ton of different.
If they ask you what is Claude,
Code,
or just what is Claude, period.
I hate AI. Like, oh, okay, well, how do you use it? Copilot. Okay. Yeah, there's been a ton of those along the way, and as far as keeping up and having an opinion on it, I've used AI to help me in this process the whole way. So we have, for our team, all of these skills built out, like a lot of people do right now. Like, what do we do, and what's our writing style, and what is our take, and what do we think about this, and how do we do business, and so when an article or something comes in, I just share it to a Slack channel. It gets picked up. I get an interpretation of it with a button that can be turned into all types of content. We've got a platform that we use as well for our clients, and we have an expert. We have a catalog in there of like all these tools where we're trying to keep up. And so when a new tool comes out, I have a skill that just runs through what it is, does the research on the internet, compares it to what we do, gives us an opinion back, we circulate it around the team, give it a stamp, and then we put it up there. So within a day, we can have a pretty fleshed out opinion.
Yeah, that's a great way to keep up.
Yeah, so a lot of the, again, conducting that knowledge and context around, and with all these, new announcements pushing more into workflows. Just yesterday was the ChatGPT workspace agents that came out. It's just getting easier and easier to sort of tie up these stores of knowledge and then process through it a lot quicker than we could in the past. So, but it is tiring.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the memes on X. They're like, hey, Anthropic, can you just chill for a day?
Can you just chill for a day?
We need a chance to breathe.
It's only going to get more exponential.
You expect it.
Well, that's been the arc of all tech, unless something really bad comes along to slow it down. Or, there is this question, Dario Amodi and I think Sam Altman and Mustafa Suleyman and Demis Hassabis have kind of all centered around this, which is, when will it get to the point where it can do novel science? We're not at that point yet, but there was recently someone who created a novel vaccine for this pretty esoteric.
I think I saw something about that.
Something their child had.
Oh, I did. This was I did read this.
Now it was the human and machine running together. It wasn't just the AI, creating it without any human guidance. Yep. But that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's then there's all. I think Anthropic's done a couple hackathons where there's been some doctor who didn't even know how to code who created something that was crazy, and so back to this the unlocking of all of these ideas that have been in people's heads, all over the world. Is, I think you've talked about, like, the explosion of innovation that we're going to see is just staggering.
Well, once we get to the point, if there's some barrier for it doing novel science that like we don't yet foresee, then this isn't true. But if there's not, if we actually get to the point in the next, I don't even know what I should say, next year, 2 months, I don't know, where it has a breakthrough in terms of the way we're able to do novel science, then you have an exponential curve that's so profound. I've talked about on this podcast, and I talk about in the book, that if we could just capture 18 seconds of the sun's rays that fall on Earth through the material science breakthrough needed, we would have over a year of energy for America.
It's crazy.
18 seconds. God put the big fusion, light bulb in the sky and just said, plug in, it's right there for you. Figure it out.
You're looking at it every day.
Don't just use the dinosaur juice. It's right there. And so, we have, I think we're going to figure that out. And then if you think about what happens once you decode energy, you can desalinate everywhere. You can run robots on unlimited sources of power. All of the projects that have been on the shelf, like I personify in the book, where Chad, country in Africa, they have a GDP of $660 a person. We have a lot of places in middle America too, which have problems with all types of stability. But in Chad, like, it's a different deal. Like, there's almost no clean water.
Yep.
Electrical, supply is like not much of a thing. Food, healthcare, it's a whole different world when you've got $660 GDP a person.
Yep.
And if we had unlimited energy, we could go in and build whatever they need to have similar levels of abundance that maybe we had in America, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and then eventually they'll transcend into, a better and better life.
Yeah.
So it's a very exciting moment once we get to the point where you can do novel science.
Yeah, I think a lot of headlines and people like to talk about the doomsday Terminator scenario of all this stuff's going to happen, and I think there's nice healthy debates that are being had around getting this right, but yeah, there's less people talking about the abundance angle that this is going to potentially create across all different facets. And I mean, going back to the book that you recommended to me 10 years ago, it's just called Abundance, right?
It's by Peter Diamandis.
Yeah. But that idea that they put forth there is we've always innovated our way out of problems into a more abundant future.
Yeah.
And if this...
It's a great book.
Yeah, great book. I loved it. I think that it stuck out to me. It was like you used to work, I'm not going to get this right, but 3 weeks to get an hour's worth of lamp oil, right? And now we get it
right.
By the time I ended that sentence. And so... yeah, I think we have, and then that goes to kind of like, was it Kevin Kelly, what technology wants to?
Yeah,
and like
Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, we innovate our way to the future, and so I think we have a good track record as a humanity of kind of making the right call here. But a lot to your thesis is we've got to get a lot right in the next 10 to 15 years ish to really capture what the promise is. And so,
yeah. How do you see it playing out? I mean, it feels like very high stakes. One of the things I said on the episode with Mitch Joel is, growing up as a nerd, he grew up very much as a nerd too. There was this moment where Revenge of the Nerds came out, that movie. Loved them. And it was a great movie.
3 of them, I think, or 2.
And then, and I said, Mitch, it's kind of like responsibility of the nerds now. It's like, the revenge occurred.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like I've never felt in my heart like a punching down on people, but, we became successful. And now we're in this moment of incredible responsibility.
Yeah.
Chris Himes left Indeed as the CEO to teach this course on AI responsibility. He was on episode 57. That was amazing discussion, and he's got a lot of watch outs. He's pretty concerned. So we try to unpack that quite a bit on that episode. But I tend to be more optimistic, and as I laid out in the book, there's a lot of case studies. I call them new models for humanity on why people should be.
Yeah.
It's not like a false, just Pollyannish. It's actually like we've done really great things. Like during the height of the Cold War, where we supposedly were supposed to never do anything with Russia and hate them, and they hated us. Our best scientists worked with their best scientists to solve smallpox.
Yep.
If it wasn't for that, that could have been an extinction event.
Yeah.
And so it's a time where, it's a time of great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I'm optimistic in general. Like I tend to think a lot of the, headlines and stuff are hyperbole. So I'm optimistic in general. I think it does bring us like closer to some interesting questions because, one of those things you hear about like bias in the models. It was a lot bigger in the news a couple of years ago than it is now.
Yeah.
But it leads to interesting conversations.
Chris brought that up a lot, by the way. Chris Himes.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, in episode 57, he talked about it a lot.
Yeah,
the bias in the model.
And I think if you go up that chain, how do we get rid of bias? There's certain stuff that's easy to get away from. Like, don't let people create bombs. Like we all agreed on that. But as you walk up that chain, you got to start wrestling with some questions that we haven't answered. Like, what is good? What is truth? Are those subjective? Are they objective? And then who gets to decide? What do we do when we get to the end of that and we disagree on some fundamental things? And then how does that play out? through the lens of this technology is interesting. It's
Right.
the same questions we've been asking for thousands of years.
Yes. Yep.
And so, between that and I loved the way you always said, when are we going to hit AGI? It's like, I don't know, when you tell me what consciousness is.
Right.
Like it's the second hardest with Mark Gober and that whole. So I like how it brings, like the further you go up that, the more philosophical that you have to get. And if it's causing us to have those conversations again, I think that's important and good. And so how do I see it playing out? I don't know that I'm in a position to have any authority on that, but
None of us are.
None of us are, but
We're all just figuring it out
I'm optimistic.
as we go.
Yeah, we're figuring out as we go, and I'm optimistic. I like hearing the conversations. People that are very concerned and getting in and asking for regulation or not doing. And so, I tend to think that we're going to end up in a place that's much better than we are now on a lot of different levels because of this. So.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is, I think, not thought about a lot, I spend a lot of time in the book on it, is how much we're going to be able to understand about the reality we're actually in because of the acceleration. Like we know so little, from the episode with Mark Gober, he lays this out so well. It was episode 2 of the podcast. He was my first guest on that. We know so little about the universe at all. I mean, let's be really clear. Like, one, we know what 4% of the universe is made of. We call that matter. We don't know what the 96% is.
Dark matter.
Dark matter and dark energy. We have no idea what that is. 2, we're very landlocked on a single planet in a universe that now with James Webb Telescope, we know has hundreds of billions of galaxies. Like just fathoming what a galaxy is like super hard. Yeah. And we're very landlocked here. I mean, it was great to see what Artemis 2 did, but that's kind of astonishing, right? That here we are. And we have no idea what consciousness is, which is the basis of every experience that we have. Yeah. That, I mean, if we were just robots, like we would not be self-aware at all. Like, there's a lot of animals on Earth where if you put them in front of a mirror, they do not have any sense of self at all. I love my dogs. They're absolutely a treasure, but they don't know when I put them in front of a mirror. They don't know that that's like Cosmo or that's River. They have no clue.
Yeah, it's...
So we're going to be able to decode more and more of that as we ride up this exponential curve.
Along those same lines, in an example, like the quantum physics stuff has fascinated me for years. Just that, like, hey, by the way, down here, nothing makes sense, and we don't understand why. Things can be in 2 places at once. Right. Quantum entanglement, all these different, and so there's since I was a kid, I can remember still a thought that I had when I was young was like, we're standing on this rock in the middle of nothing. Vastness. Vastness. Yep. And then as I've gotten older, that vastness just expands and expands and expands and expands. Yep. And I get fascinated by all this stuff around, how do we explain, how we came to exist and what is consciousness? I love that. Where did everything start? Okay, the Big Bang. Okay, well, what banged? That's a whole other, like,
why did it go off at all?
Exactly. So I think, especially in the consciousness piece around how AI starts to wade into that, it's super interesting to me because the more and more it goes by, and maybe it's because I wouldn't know as much as others on this, but maybe it's because it's designed after us or the way our brain works to some extent. But it seems like it just keeps one of the things that I loved, it was I forget the talk that I saw, but somebody was saying, like, everybody's talking about hallucinations. This is 2 or 3 years ago. Everyone's talking about hallucinations. And it's like, that's not just an AI problem. Like, we do that all the time. Sure. Like, if I asked you what you had for breakfast last week on Tuesday, it might get close. Yeah. But if we went back, it's not true. So I don't know. It's
Neil Seth at this year's TED, he gave my second favorite talk. Actually, was by him, and it was another talk on consciousness. And he has this graph where he shows consciousness and intelligence. And he's like, these are 2 very different things. Like machines can be extremely intelligent. And, like you said, we used to have computer jobs where people were literally manually calculating like they were in Hidden Figures. And, consciousness is, even if you're just a total materialist, is a full body experience. We have neurons. We have second most neurons in our gut. Like gut instinct is a real thing. And, it's so mysterious. I mean, you and I are around, the average male is around 37 trillion cells, okay? And then there's an equal number of things that cohabitate with us.
Okay.
Like our gut has
Bacteria,
trillions of, organisms that like live, cohabitate. And every day there's around 30 trillion things that are dying and being reborn in us between cells and these organisms.
Yeah.
And somehow we maintain this permanence of who is Brandon.
Yeah.
And all the way dating back to when, your earliest memories were, and the arc of everything that's happened since. And I have many experiences. I'm sure you have this experience where things float into my consciousness that I forget about. This award I won at Tulane University recently for Entrepreneur of the Year, which I had no idea that was coming. It was like a shock when President Fitz said he wanted to give this award to me. Like before the speech, I was wondering, well, what should I speak on? I put out just a call to the universe, and something floated into my consciousness that I had completely forgotten about, that was around a 20-year-old memory. And it happened in New Orleans, and it was a real magical moment in New Orleans. And then after another 10 minutes, something floated into my field of consciousness that I'd completely forgotten about. And I literally like laughed out loud, and I knew it was my mom. I knew it was my mom's soul that pushed it in there.
Wow.
And it was one of her favorite songs when I was really young, by this band called America, called Magic. And the song is, "You Can Do Magic." It's a great song. And the music video, you can't make this up. Like, go to YouTube and watch the music video. They're playing in heaven.
That's crazy.
They're playing amidst the clouds,
That's crazy.
right?
Yeah.
And then I did a meditation, and the whole 3 arcs of the speech floated in one by one, like
That's
lock,
cool.
lock.
Yeah.
And it was one of the best speeches I've ever given.
That's awesome.
And Rachel's friends were like, "How did you do that? And how many weeks have you been preparing?" I said, "Well, actually, this was the day that I prepared." And they said, "Well, how did that happen?" I said, "Well," it all came to me in a meditation. I didn't tell them about the super woo stuff because I didn't want to freak Rachel out in front of her buddies.
Friends.
But it's so mysterious, And I think that's the soul. I think that's the soul. I think that's the energy of us, because we know from quantum that we're all light and energy at our core. I mean, I'm looking at you, and on a quantum level, you're 99.129s of empty space, because you're made of atoms.
That's what my wife says.
Yeah, exactly. But so is everything in here, right? This chair and everything else.
Yeah.
Like, we know this for a fact now through quantum physics.
Yeah.
So that's like crazy.
It breaks my brain.
Right.
And then there's, I think as you get older too, and you start contemplating these questions, I know for me, when I had my son, and then shortly after my daughter, you start seeing the world a little bit different way and start asking these important questions. And then, people go down this rabbit hole at different levels. Some people don't even want to talk about it. Other people just get down a few levels. But man, I went all the way down this, and it's a basis for a lot of my, faith and beliefs that I came to. I came to my faith through what they call apologetics, which is the rational defense of one's position, whether it being religion or not. I don't know how many debates I watched on this stuff between scientists.
I've never heard of that. Tell me about it. Apologetics.
Apologetics. That's just you can be an apologist for anything. I could be an apologist for this couch. I'd just be telling you why this couch is.
You're sounding very Canadian right now.
Canadians are by
John
nature
Lyons
apologists.
Would be proud.
I know, I'm sorry for. No, I'm just kidding. So over the years, and it's in religion, it's used quite a bit. You're a Christian apologist, or you're Muslim apologist, whatever. But it just means a rational defense of your faith. But the way I came to my faith was not through, because I didn't grow up with the faith. The way I came through it was like head to heart instead of heart to head. Most people kind of like feel this first, and then And for some reason, I got really into all of these debates online, and a lot of them had to do with a lot of stuff we're talking about too, like what are the proofs for God, the cosmological argument, the ontological, teleological argument. And so I got fascinated with all of that stuff. And yeah, there's just, it's comforting to know that these questions have been being asked for thousands of years. And then equally as, uncomfortable to say that, well, they lead me to a place where faith is the only answer to take a step. And it was interesting when my son was young. And I think most kids are like this, but he had the ability to ask questions that outpaced his ability to understand the answers. So he would ask some big question about why are we here? Or this is, you can't hit an 8-year-old or 5-year-old with the cosmological argument says that, right? And so I think as we grow and we mature, we become more open to these ideas. And I think you see evidence of that everywhere. And essentially we're all sort of on this journey to, even whether we know it or not, to find significance, to feel significance, and to get those questions answered. And so, yeah. Anyway, that's my personal.
Well, what do you think it is in this deep dive you've done? What do you think this reality is?
This reality.
Yeah.
What do I think this reality is?
I know it's kind of a loaded question if you think about it.
Because
I think there's many different layers.
I think you can answer it scientifically by what you've said so far. This collection of matter. I don't know how we get to consciousness. I love Mark Gober's approach on it when you introduced me to his stuff as being something that you tune into versus something that you possess. That feels right, in all the stuff that he said.
Yeah. That we're receiving consciousness versus just manifesting it.
That resonated.
But again, two things can be true at the same time, because you could have a damaged antenna, a damaged brain,
that's right.
And so your experience of consciousness is going to be very different. I learned at TED, I didn't know this actually, that there are some women on Earth who have 100 times as many photoreceptors in their eyes than you and I do.
Didn't know that.
And so their view of reality, like we know from the human experience that we can see very little of actually what there is available to see. Like you and I can't see an ultraviolet, at least not yet. We haven't gotten that biological upgrade. And and there's many other things that we can't see. We also can't hear nearly as much. My dogs have something like 5,000 times the ability to smell than I do. So like they can literally smell that spot, and and their mind
tells a story.
It tells a story of like what happened days ago. Probably not a story I want to know, because these dogs,
it involved the other dogs,
can be pretty bad. But I mean, it's incredible that these women can. They're walking around experiencing 100 times the amount of colors than I am.
And all the stuff that Gober said in his book about people to have special abilities and twins and all that kind of stuff. I'm not a scientist, but seems to resonate with my experience. So the question is, what is this? I don't know the answer to that. I think I think there's whatever it is, there's a purpose to it. And
I definitely have seen that. And
so I've had to I guess where I've gotten to is like the big thing for me is understanding that you're the main actor in your play, in your movie.
That's right.
In
that's very quantum physics
life,
too.
Right? Yeah. And then at some point, whether it's kids or purpose or something else, you tend to kind of end up playing a smaller part in a bigger role. And that's kind of how I view like where I'm at now, which is like there's a bigger plan than me, and it's in motion, and I want to know how I can be available to be part of that plan, and then wait for the opportunities to be called into the game, so to speak. And so the more.
That's a great attitude, honestly.
Yeah. And it lets you relieve some stress too. And the more I think that way, the more I get called in.
Yes. That is so well said. Yep. I mean, that is the Celestine Prophecy is a great book along this journey, and one I profile quite a bit in my book. And I see synchronicities now multiple times a day, and it's really beautiful. Sometimes it's really funny. Sometimes it's really profound. Yeah, that just happens a lot. And when you walk that way in the world, and the way I look at that is it's the divine being playful with us. It's prodding us, and there's been times in meditation where I've been able to hold it for a very brief time, very, very brief time. I've never been able to hold it for a long period of time because it's so hard to contemplate that, we live in this world where there are trillions of interactions happening between, 8.2 billion plus humans, and it's all meant to advance us and advance consciousness all at the same time. And, it's, if you think about it like a big, quantum computer, it's like just like insane amount of processing going on. And I don't believe we're living in a simulation. That's not what I'm saying here.
I love the conversation though.
Yeah, but it's like,
agree,
and there's all these things that nudges that people get, you, me, et cetera, this, what we're doing here, that lead both of us to grow. And sometimes just happens because it's meant for that person that's the observer to grow. But it's all happening in this grand cosmic plan that I can't understand, that's way beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
But it's rooted deeply in love.
Yeah.
I've seen, I feel, that's incredible.
There's a video I watched a long time ago where a guy's got a whiteboard in front of him. He's explaining a bunch of different stuff, and he says, he draws a stick figure, and he says, most people think that you live your life, and draws an arrow, and at the end of it, you go to heaven or hell. And then he draws a wave over the line. And he says, and most people think that if they spend enough time up here, above the line, and not doing bad stuff, I didn't do too bad or whatever, and they can calculate it, that you go to heaven or hell. The only problem with that story is it's you focused. It's not focused on how you fit into the bigger plan.
Yes.
Which was very resonant to me.
Yep.
And so I have, I think you've had this experience too, but the more I have said, okay, what do you need me to do? That type of thing. I've found myself in situations that I'm not qualified to be in, to be someone of aid in some form or fashion. So it's a.
But to be of selfless service is such a beautiful place to be.
It is. It's really hard to do too.
It is really hard to do.
It's really hard to do.
Yeah, it's really hard to calm the ego and.
All of that.
Yeah.
It's. I'm reading. I think you've probably read it. Everybody else has read it. I've never read it, but the Extreme Ownership book from Jocko.
I haven't read it.
Yeah.
I own it.
You own it?
Because it was gifted to me.
Yeah.
And there are many books that are gifted to me that I've never read. But, the first time I ever heard his name was Mike Maples Jr., who was on episode 20 of the podcast. He wrote the book Pattern Breakers. He was a longtime investor in us.
I met with him.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and so anyways, he was the first one who recommended Jocko.
Well, and somebody said it to me the other day, a guy that I've come to know recently, but he was like, because he was a big Jocko guy, and I was asking him questions about it, and he was like, look, man, the way I think about it is there's truths, and they exist here, and that's just my lens to get to those truths. Is I like that. It resonates with me, and I thought that's an interesting way to look at it. There's a set of truths, and then however we choose to access that is interesting.
I mean, speaking of faith, I mean, it is an act of faith to even contemplate that we can make it to this age of abundance for all. And if these are happening, everything is happening for a reason, including the darkness that we see right now. And it's very hard to contemplate that because, the part of the atheist argument, which I'm clearly not an atheist, but is that if there is such a thing as God, why do bad things happen?
It's the problem of evil, is what they call it.
The problem of evil.
Yep.
And, I'm Jewish, and, obviously there was the Holocaust, and that was horrible. And a lot of people don't realize that there are 16 million Jews in the world right now and 8.2 billion humans. And that's the same population that we were pre-Holocaust. So it took like all that time just to get back to this number. And so, but there's so much greatness in humanity at the same time.
Yeah.
And when things really get going, it's not like we stayed in the Holocaust, we were saved. And it was taught over and over again, never again, never again, never again. And so, we're in this we're constantly getting hardened to be better. And I think that you and I would agree, if we could go back in time 100 years ago or 200 years ago, it was a time where we did not have the same ethics that we have today.
Oh.
Like, I mean, if you go back 250 years ago, 250 years ago, 90% of the world population could not read. And 80% was living in abject poverty. That's just 250 years ago. And so, you know, somehow we continue to muddle our way, right, to get better and better.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that you should look away from the darkness. If anything, like, you should be like, hey, we're better than that.
Yeah.
Right. And that forces us to grow. And
Yeah.
that's I think that's part of the cosmic game, is like for us to continue to transcend these moments, to get to be more and more like God. If we're made in the image of God, then the whole point is to be more and more like God. Now, whether or not we're made in the image of God, we're all part of God, is what I've seen. And so we all have that divine spark. I do think that God loves us unconditionally and wants us to transcend the moment, like,
Yeah.
and become what we're meant to be, which is not a landlocked on a single planet species that doesn't understand what most of the universe is made of and has no freaking clue how to reconcile quantum science and classical science. Because like we're very advanced in so many ways, like, you know, hallelujah for science, like, you know, like what we're doing here, you know, very, very much focused on the scientific breakthroughs that allowed us to even have the electricity in this room, et cetera.
Yep.
But, you know, I had Peter Wang on this podcast, and I gave this really artificially low number in my mind, because he's like super hardcore into quantum science, and he was trained in that. He immigrated from Wuhan in 1984. He's the co-founder of Anaconda, which is now one of the unicorns in Austin. And I said, Peter, I was like, maybe we know 2% of what we could know with science right now. He's like, Brett, it's like way less than 1%. Like, trust me, it's like less than 1%, which kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have so, and that's one of the most beautiful things about humanity, is we're constantly curious, and we'll never stop being curious. Like, no matter how much abundance we have, there's a universe that's so vast for us to explore if we can figure out how to solve faster and light speed travel or interdimensional travel.
Sure.
And there's just so much. I mean, that's what the lattice is all about, you know?
Yeah, I think we have the capability of an incredible good and incredible evil in us, right? And navigating that and understanding what framework you put on that. I mean, I struggled with the problem of evil thing early on, like when I was exploring all this, and somebody gave me a really like short way to deal with that. He's like, you take your kids to the dentist? I was like, uh-huh. He's like, do they like it? I was like, no, they hate it. He's like, do they cry? I'm like, yeah, they cry. He's like, why do you take them? You don't love them? I'm like, oh no, because it's good. They have to do that. It's part of them, like going to. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
I understand now. Like there's, there's a book in the Bible where Job is all about like all this stuff. And so I do agree with what you're saying. Is like, there's some bigger plan here that It's so funny you say this. I just sent, my son was doing a presentation the other night, and I sent him a Garth Brooks song that I haven't thought about in forever, that sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. Yeah. But it's the truth. Yep. It's like sometimes we don't know what's best for us, and we have to go through some things. And I believe that firmly, as hard as it is to walk in those times. And the hardest ones that I'm realizing are those that your duty is just to be there and not solve it, and just sit in the pain with somebody. Yep. That's a tough place to be. But
it is, yeah. Sometimes people just want to be heard, and just loved unconditionally, and that's it.
And you just need to be quiet and say,
"Right,
I love you."
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with everything in that part of the conversation, and everything you said after, which is like, we seem to be figuring it out, and going through learning experiences along the way, and ending up in a better place than we are. I say that, but there is a real risk there. Like, civilizations have come and gone, right, in the past. And so I don't know what it looks like in the future, but I feel like we have, to your point, a time of great responsibility ahead of us a little bit with this technology specifically. So,
Yeah. How do you see it playing out? I mean, put on the futurist hat, because I know you're pretty rooted in sci-fi and everything else. Like, how do you see it playing out? Because it's hard to fathom that we're barely past 3 years since the launch of ChatGPT. I mean, Anthropic is a 5-year-old company.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Like, like a company literally goes from founding to 30 billion revenue run rate. Comes out with, this new model, Mythos, is like supposed to be just insanely powerful in terms of its ability to find all the vulnerabilities in software. At TED, one person told me, that's an investor in Anthropic, that they put a $50 to $100 million price tag just to say, look, if you want to use it now, that's the
price.
It
was $100 million that they invested to try to let them find it. There's this debate online about how much of that is marketing. They said it with ChatGPT 3 when it came out, how much of it's true. I think Ethan Mollick weighed in really nicely on it recently. He's like, I don't really care. Like, is it a bad thing that we're testing these things?
Right.
We should go and do
Should we patch up vulnerabilities? Yes.
I think what we've, where do I think it goes? Look, within a 24-hour period, like a week ago, I had a drone drop off a package in my yard, and then I was in a car that was driving itself. This is a weird.
You're in the Jetsons.
This is a weird time that we live in. To think that I'm seeing that, and I said it to my wife today. I was like, I would rather a Waymo than a regular Uber ride. I'd prefer the technology. So I think your point about quantum computing, robotics, and generative AI and everything else that's happening there, those converging seems like it's going to level up really quickly. Elon talks about everybody having a robot in their house, and I think the future is going to look vastly different. I think I do think invention is going to accelerate. I don't know how much of that curve looks like. I don't know what it looks. I can't see. We're in this world we don't work, and then are we just we know as part of our human nature that we feel like we have to work, we have to create, we have to do things. And so is that a good thing if we end up where just everything's taken care of? Then what's our significance? And so I think it's going to be really interesting. I don't know. I don't know what
or is our significance defined by that? Or is is our actual significance defined by our ability to create and explore?
Correct.
Versus I've been an entrepreneur a long time, right? 30 years now.
Yeah.
And I don't mean this in a deprecating way. I actually mean this as a great prayer for people. But I've met very few people in my entire career especially working with these big companies, because I've served big companies for a long, long time as customers. It's kind of like their little small, nimble, partner. I've seen very few people that love their job.
Oh, yeah.
Very few.
Yeah.
And that, to me, always hurts my heart a little bit, because, I didn't realize this until I was a parent, but my dad, everybody loved my dad. My dad unfortunately passed away at 63, but he was like larger in life figure, an amazing inventor. And, I would ask my friends back when I was young, I was like, why do you like my dad?
Yeah.
Because he's just my dad, right? Yeah. And they were like, well, quite a few of them told me, my dad complains about his job all the time. And that's where he spends most of his time.
Yeah.
And your dad, always has these funny stories and seems like he's having a blast. And I didn't understand that until I had children. And then I had this moment where I had children where I was like, oh, I get it. I need to walk the path of joy in terms of what I do, and they're going to see that, and they're going to learn through osmosis, and then they ultimately need to find whatever the path is for them. So I actually see the future of us getting to abundance as one. One of the typical capitalist pushbacks I get is, Brett, are you just saying that people are just going to be like the Bhutanese and just meditate all day? And I always remind them, I'm like, well, first of all, you're assuming that's a bad thing. The average person in Bhutan is way happier than the average American. They prioritize in the country the measure of gross national happiness.
Yes.
And I can tell you, having been there now with the family and just seeing the way things roll there, people are really happy.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an American woman with us who was crying at the end. She was like, I want to bring this happiness and this soulfulness to America. And their GDP of the entire country is 3 weeks of coffee in the US. Okay. So they prioritize something. They made a choice. And is all of humanity going to do that? No, because there's so many aspects of humanity, again, which is infinitely curious. But if people had more time to practice like deep inner contentment, deep exploration of, the soul, meditation, why would that be a bad thing? Why do we as capitalists look down on that? Or look down on the fact that their GDP is so small compared to ours? Like, I think again, two things can be true at the same time. The American drive to create and like innovate and all that stuff, push the world forward, great. The hollowing out of the American mindset to be like, that's the only thing that matters, not great, and this constant like pushing us through advertising, through the media, through social media to crave shit we don't need, et cetera. Like, there is no chase to external accumulation.
We have this, as humans, we have this desire to create idols. We create these things that if I do this, then I'll be happy. And we know it's true. Like you see it when the kids are little. I want this thing so bad. And then, my daughter wanted a Ninja Creamy that made the ice cream really bad when she was little. We got that. She used it for like 2 weeks. Now she's on the next thing. I've seen it in my mom as she continues to, age, and she's asking questions about, where does my fulfillment come from and satisfaction? And we have this desire to put things in that position. I think a lot of people do it with work, right? And there's a lot of reasons people don't like their jobs. I mean, there's folks that don't have any other options and they have to do this thing and do that thing. And but it's when I think the true discontentment comes from when you put your identity in that thing, and then that thing's not going the way that it's supposed to be going, and then you feel this like I'm not. And I struggle with this a whole bunch, especially in my 20s and stuff. I struggled with. If I could be the financial advisor here and get this and do that and get that office, I'll be happy. And so I'm familiar with the struggle. And I think it's just over here, it's, as compared to some of the other places you've mentioned, it's just become part of our culture. And, you're seeing some of the generations pull away from that a little bit. Like, I'm bad with these generation names. Who's the one after us generation at Y? It used to be like, if you want to motivate them, it's not money, it's time off and autonomy, right? And so you're seeing some of it, show up in different places. But yeah, I think we all would benefit from more introspection and deep thinking about what truly makes us happy and brings happiness.
Or at least having the ability to do that, not being in such a race of programming that it's like, well, I need to do this and I need to do that. I mean, part of the reason our birth rate has declined is because people are working so much that they don't feel like they can have children, and then prices have skyrocketed to the point where they can't afford a home, et cetera, and they're like, well, I don't want to bring a kid into this, I can't even afford a home, and it's just this massive accumulation. So the way abundance, I think, is going to play out here, especially once we solve energy. Like, again, the gate we've got to pass through is like science needs to be automated. And then we'll pass through so many gates so quickly at that point. You and I will be, we're in the generation where we remember life before the internet. We're also in the generation where we remember life before mobile. We're also in the generation where we remember life before social media, et cetera. And now the one that remembers life before AI. But these next generations, it's going to be like every 1 or 2 years where they're like, you remember before we had like unlimited energy, or do you remember when we actually had diseases?
People drove cars.
Right. So there's just so much at stake. I mean, there is such great responsibility in this moment because there's so much at stake in terms of where we can get to. And it's always been our destiny as humanity to make our lives easier, more meaningful, et cetera, through the use of technology. So
since they invented fire.
yes,
The hammer.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
We've done. That's why I mean our track record's pretty good. Without there's been lots of not great stuff along the way. I don't think we've seen yet on the AI side. We've seen small little things happen, like attacks using AI to hack things, and that. I mean, I hope we can avoid any big hiccup with this one along the way because of the potential we have. So
part of what you have to assume. I mean, the argument is, a very small number of people could cause great destruction, but as Byron Reese said, and I think that was episode 11 of the podcast, he said that was also true in the days of the small medieval villages, because someone could have thrown a dead goat into the well and poisoned all the water for the townspeople, and somehow almost all of the time that didn't happen. So it really is, it's kind of like a mirror, like how positive or negative are you about humanity? And there are many people, including like what's happening here with Anthropic, and maybe we look at it as marketing, maybe we don't, who are like, hey, we gotta get you really leveled up right now, because what's coming, everybody's going to have access to technology that's powerful, and if you have all these security vulnerabilities, so I actually view that as a very positive thing. I mean, I'm
Me
sure
too.
they do too from a revenue perspective. But look, that's capitalism. I mean, they have something that nobody else in the world has right now, and there is a market price for it, and the market price is very high, because of how good it is. If it wasn't that good, market price
we wouldn't be talking about it. I was at a dinner one time where we were talking about all of this stuff, and the conversation between, hey, there's so much similar, like your example that you just gave, like a small amount of people could have thrown a goat into the well.
Right.
And so a lot of this is so familiar just with technological advancement. Every conversation that comes up, we can put into a bucket that we've had this conversation before. But what was explained to me was that like the difference here is the pace at which it's happening. It's so fast. Like when the railroads came around, it was like a dad telling his kid, in 20 years, don't do this job. Right.
Yep.
And now it's 18 months. It's such a faster clip. And so maybe that's the adjustment that we need to make.
It's the pace, and it's the scale. As well, because I've actually felt this for a long time as a technologist. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're making the whole world digitized, and we're doing that because it's much faster and everything else. But the challenge with that is it makes it like more hackable. But I actually view that as well, like speaking back to consciousness, as part of the divine's way of saying, look, you're going to have power that's so vastly more than you can imagine now, that you got to figure out how to allow love to conquer fear. I mean, one of the pushbacks I always have on people that believe that UAPs are here, et cetera, which, look, I met a guy recently that has seen that himself. He seems completely stable, sane, et cetera. But I always challenge them with this, and they usually agree with me. Look, if they're here, then that means they know how to travel faster than light speed or interdimensionally, which means by definition that they will have faster and light speed weapons or interdimensional weapons if they so chose. And they had to get to a point where love conquered fear, because they would not, they would have already destroyed themselves many times over. Like if we can solve faster and light speed travel, then as humanity, that means that we can create faster and light speed weapons. So if we create that,
we have to have gotten through that gate.
We have to have gotten through that gate. It's like gates, It is, I'm going to sound like a simulation theorist. I don't mean it like that at all. But it is like gates in a video game almost. It's like,
you got to clear that level.
You've got to clear that level to level up, and humanity continues to level up.
Where do you think the most challenging gate is for us to clear as you look forward?
I think that we're at the most challenging time right now. I mean, right now, you've probably heard me say this, but I'll say it for the benefit of people that may haven't heard it yet. We have 13,000 nuclear weapons on Earth today, not just America, all the countries combined. And you probably know the answer to this because I know you listen to the podcast. But what percentage of those do you think it would take to wipe out humanity almost completely and send us into a nuclear winter for a decade?
Do you know how to calculate the percentage, but I would answer 1.
That's 2%.
2%, yeah.
Okay, so we have 50 times the amount.
Yeah.
And what we choose to call this as humanity is mutually assured destruction. And the acronym for that is MAD. And so we have a very highly developed amygdala where we have created real weapons. They're not little toy guns that have destructive power that we saw in Hiroshima and Nagasaki that we really try to contain. That's why there's a war right now going on with Iran. And this is a serious risk. I mean, and somehow we've managed to not hit that moment, but there were moments where it was really close. I had Pippa Malmgren on the podcast, and her father was in the room during the Cuban Missile Crisis where calls were made to family members saying, start driving to Maine right now, right? And she's like, and her dad was in that room, and it ended in hugs. And it ended in hugs actually between us and the Russians too. But it was close.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a real risk, is that we have the whole, claw code, clawbot thing taking off, et cetera. Open claw.
Yeah.
He was actually one of the TED speakers this year.
Oh, really?
That talk's already live. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't
Peter
seen it
Stein.
yet. Yeah.
It's pretty funny. Like the comedian that closed out TED, they always close it out with a comedian.
Yeah.
She's like, it's very inappropriate. But she said, okay, he's Austrian. He's like built like a tank. Like he's like super muscular, and he's constantly laughing. She's like, one of these 3 characteristics has to go.
I can't have all 3.
She's like, because he's manifesting this agent,
Yeah.
So it was a really funny moment.
Yeah.
But we've got AI agents that can be used for bad by terrorists, et cetera. And that's again the mythos moment here with Anthropic, to retrofit everything and massively upgrade things.
Yep.
We have a gate, after we walk through the AGI gate, we have the quantum computing gate, which is going to rapidly speed up everything.
Yeah.
Like to a point,
You can't even calculate.
we can't even calculate it, right?
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago when I was at TED where Harmit Nevin on stage was like, the only way we can figure out, hypothesize what's happening here at Google in terms of why this is working is it must be computing in a different dimension.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And I'm like,
that can't be the
TED,
answer.
I'm just like,
which one?
right. And, but I mean, you probably heard me say this, like when the Willow chip came out last year, it could perform a calculation in 5 minutes that a standard computer, which is dependent on ones and zeros versus qubits, qubits are the quantum chips, would take 730 trillion times the known age of the universe to make the calculation.
How do you, it doesn't work in my brain. Like, what?
Right.
How do you?
Yeah, it's 10 to the septillion. It's
What do we
10
do
to
with
the
that?
25th power. Yeah. So what we do with it is great. Like
it's just
like we need to do a lot of simulation modeling of the world, whether it comes to weather, disease, all types of potential outcomes, and quantum computing make that fast.
Yeah.
And then again, combined with the scientific breakthrough moment of hopefully where we'll get to with AGI.
Yeah.
So we can decode all types of scientific things that have really plagued us and challenged us. I mean, think about what AlphaFold alone allows for drug discovery.
Yep.
So quantum computing will be the next gate.
Yeah.
And then the next gate after that, hard to
That's
say.
where that's where my brain breaks.
Yeah. I mean, there's brain-computer interfaces, which is going to be a big gate.
But once you get to quantum computing
is a big one.
Is the
because then you have AGI-powered, quantum computing-powered robots.
Right.
And it's going to be
Is
wild.
it
That's all in the next 10 to 15 years.
is it Kurzweil that said this? He doesn't need to define the singularity is when we'll have access to all compute power and knowledge in our brain. Didn't he say that?
Well, his subtitle for the singularity is nearer is when we merge with AI.
Right.
I don't know what I think about that. Like I personally don't think that we'll choose to merge with AI.
Yeah.
I think we'll choose to treat it as the super powerful tool.
Yeah.
Elon Musk said a year ago something pretty crass. It really hurt my heart when he said this. He said, humanity is nothing more than a biological bootloader for the future of digital superintelligence, which basically means we're just an evolutionary stepping stone.
Yeah. A lot of people are talking about that.
Yeah, and so that to me is very sad, because it's like, oh, you really don't think we matter at all as humanity, or we're just like, just something to be stepped on like an ant, and then, and then transcended. But Kurzweil, he does hypothesize in the book, chapter 3 of that book, which is called "Who Am I?" He hypothesizes that we'll be able to upload our brains.
This is where I was getting to.
And that's a very materialist view, because that means that the big debate on, are we nothing more than biological machines, which means consciousness comes, manifests from our brains. Everything about us can be replicated. If that's the case, then by definition, we will figure out a way to replicate everything, and we will have robots that are every bit as conscious as we are, that if we choose, that have super powerful capabilities, whether it's strength, intelligence, and I just don't believe that that's the way it'll play out. I mean, I hypothesize in the lattice that the point in time where AI gets to be as conscious as we are is like in the 2050s. But we've already passed through the gates of great responsibility. So it's like we're kind of like worthy.
We made it.
We made it, right? Yeah. And we figured out how to align AI in a way where it's as loving as its core as we can be.
Yeah, the direction I was kind of headed with that is like it's more in lines with. Sam Altman, I think, talked recently about metering intelligence or knowledge. Metering intelligence, I think, based on how much you can pay for it. But in this world where, and others have said it, where intelligence is democratized and knowledge is democratized and we have access to it, does that fundamentally change the way that we just interact as people too? Like, am I not explaining things to you anymore? Am I just saying a word and you can understand all of this? And so I'm interested in sort of what is that world where, we still have the fundamental problem of like, people have to want the knowledge, right? They have to want to bring that in. So, but yeah, we know the future of work is going to change. We know, the world around us is going to change. I wonder how the human interactions are going to change, if anything, if we head down.
I think that the very simplistic definition is that everything needs to, the way I conclude the book is the heart has to conquer the head.
Yep.
That basically we need to lead from a place of love, and that when we're at our highest, that's how we lead. Whether it's leading a company, whether it's leading a nonprofit, whatever it is, whether it's leading a government agency or a country, is leading from a place of love, and that is the highest vibratory force in the universe, and you can actually see it. I mean, in science experiments, like when you play to a plant, like super destructive, sound, versus beautiful, loving sound, and tell a plant that you love it. This is actually in Michael Pollan's book, A World Appears, as well. His new book on consciousness. But seeing the videos and seeing how this actually plays out in scientific experiments is pretty ethereal, like to see. And so that we know that's that's what the creator, God, whatever you call that, consciousness wants for us, is to align around love. And again, it's an act of faith. It all comes back to an act of faith.
Yeah.
If the divine is working through us, and ultimately what's happening is happening for a reason, and as much progress as we've had, and like we said 250 years ago, et cetera, like for us to make it to the next 250 and beyond, or if you take our evolutionary time, the next 300,000 years as Homo sapiens, with a sun that's apparently going to last another billion years, pretty infinite light source for us to plug into.
Not bad.
We have to pass through, quite a few gates, and the current way that we're playing these games that can't hold with technology this powerful. I mean, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like what I'm doing is me having an act of love towards humanity, a prayer to be part of the light for us to make it. I mean, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, I want us to make it, you know.
Yeah.
I know that we all want
us to make
it, but it's what do we do to make sure that we can?
And it's an age-old battle of
Yep.
good versus evil and
Yep.
love versus hate. And
I love the episode with Byron Reese where he's like, look, don't put this huge burden on yourself for all the people on the planet. Like we all have different roles. He's like, if everybody just practiced everyday acts of kindness, that would be enough.
Yeah.
Like we'd make it 100%.
Yeah.
Just with that.
Yeah.
So I like that. But you know, I view that what I'm doing now is like this is the role I have.
I saw it percolating up, you know, in 2025, and you mentioned that trip in the beginning. We had a 20-minute conversation that most people wouldn't have after a business meeting on the way to the airport about theology and the state of the world and all that. So I've seen you go through it, and it's neat to see,
thanks,
to be doing this, because we need to have the right people thinking about the right things and bringing up the right conversations. And I'm a fan of this technology for what it's done for my career and then what I get to do every day with it. And it's cool to work with and help people. And then I'm just super interested. I do like people ask me, what have you been reading or what type of books do you like to read? It's like very specific, like near future dystopian science sci-fi. And so I'm very interested in this space, and so.
Well, you're not going to get that from the lettuce, because that's near future, non-dystopian sci-fi.
Non-dystopian.
That's like positive.
Exactly. So, it's fascinating, and I love the conversation around it. And there's
and you're part of the awakening too. We all are, because what you're doing in these companies where you're helping people see the potential and you're unleashing joy.
Yeah.
Like that's a beautiful act of love as well. Like that's really cool. Like you're giving people an experience for the first time in their life that is going to reframe the way they even look at the nature of their work.
Yeah.
And that to me is super exciting.
And just also, not even people that fit in our client, ICP, just other folks that you bump into, like, hey, have you tried this? Did you know you could do that? Watching my son put together his, a great example, 2 nights ago, he's going through his PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Well, the way he put it together was using Claude Code in the desktop app, where he did his research back and forth, formed the narrative, created an outline document, came back, had to create the slides, work back and forth, remove this slide, no one needs to talk more about this. And by the time he got up to present, he was way more prepared in a shorter amount of time and knew more about that topic than he had done it the old way.
Wow.
And it was amazing to see that compression happen and sort of just him do it by itself. He just learned, I showed him a few things and he goes on. And so that, as a very micro example of what other people are finding in the workplace and just in their life is, my wife had an aha moment too. She came back from, I was meeting her at the restaurant, and she walked in. She wasn't in a great mood, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "I spent all day working on this spreadsheet, and I already got an email saying something's not right with it, and I have no idea what's wrong. Can you help me out?" And I was like, "Spreadsheet? That's not really. I'll give it a shot." And so we sat down, and she started saying words I didn't understand, and she was showing me stuff, and I was like, hold on. I took a picture of it, and I was like, hey, what's the email say? And I took a picture of that. Just loaded it up into ChatGPT and just said, hey, what's going on here? This person is saying this is wrong. We can't find it. And it gave us the row and column, because we took like some formulas and stuff. That's and my wife just looked at me like, are you kidding me? Like when she had that moment.
But the beautiful moment is your wife finally appreciated what you're doing.
For once.
Oh my gosh, I know that moment. Deborah and I are about to celebrate 30 years of marriage.
Congrats, man. Yeah, we're going on 25. Yeah, right. Yeah. I'll take an attaboy from her wherever I can get it. So, but then watching her, that spark her interest, and then going on and trying to learn now how to do this stuff is super cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I got so many stories like that, but yeah.
Well, I really, really love this.
That's fun.
This is so much fun.
Yeah.
And let's do it again in the future when a couple of years from now it'll be, who knows what's going on at that
a year from
point
now,
in time.
Who knows? It's going to be wild. So I appreciate you having me. You've been a good friend over a long time.
Oh,
and
you've been amazing to work with.
Yep, you've helped me. You've helped me in a lot of different ways, and so it's appreciated. And thank you for having me.
It's mutual, man.
Yeah,
Love
thanks,
you, brother.
Man.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Love Conquers Fear. I love that conversation with Brandon. He's such a great guy. Definitely check out his business. I'll put a link in the show notes, Gadoci Consulting. Also, good follow on LinkedIn. He's putting really good content out there. Really appreciate all the love you're sending my way. Literally right before recording this, I got this beautiful message via LinkedIn where someone sent me a private message on how much Love Conquers Fear has really been moving them and their heart, and that means the world to me. So keep that coming. I really appreciate it. Share this with a friend. There's no ads on here. This is all self-funded, and thank you so much for the support. Team Humanity all the way.